and make sure your mobile phones are on silent. I'll just do my check as well. Okay. A special message for this particular meeting. I would like to remind everyone that we are currently in a pre-election period. The public and council should therefore avoid making any statements or comments which relate to the forthcoming by-election or any politically sensitive issues. Also, the following statement is: the Cabinet meeting is being filmed and the recording will be available on the Council's website. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. Anybody speaking that does not wish to be filmed should make themselves known to the camera operator. Reminder to turn your microphones on and off when you're speaking. I'll go through the Cabinet and ask you to introduce yourselves. Councillor Warren.
Councillor Sarah Warren, Councillor for Bath Avon North Ward, and Cabinet Lead for Sustainable Bath and North East Somerset.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Hurst.
Councillor Joel Hurst, Cabinet Lead for Sustainable Transport Policy.
Thank you, Joel. Councillor May.
Councillor Paul May. I'm the Cabinet Member for Children and I represent Pensford and Whitchurch Village.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Roper.
Good evening. Yes, Councillor Paul Roper, Cabinet Member for Economic and Cultural Sustainable Development and also Ward Councillor for Kingsmead Ward.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor McCabe.
Councillor Matt McCabe. I'm the Cabinet Member for the Built Environment, Housing and Sustainable Development, and I'm the Ward Councillor for Bath Avon South.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Elliott.
Evening, Councillor Mark Elliott. I'm Cabinet Member for Resources and Ward Member for Lansdowne.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Rigby.
Evening everyone, Manda Rigby. I am the Ward Council, Ward Council for Bathwick, and I am Cabinet Member for Communications and Community.
Thank you, Manda. I'll ask Democratic Services to read out the emergency evacuation procedure, please.
If the continuous alarm sounds, you must evacuate the building and proceed to the assembly point. From this room, you follow the green running person signs to the exit, using either the marble staircase at the end of the building nearest to Bath Abbey or the main staircase. Please do not use the lifts. The assembly point for this building is in Orange Grove on the green outside Brown's Restaurant.
Thank you, Marie. Apologies for absence. We have Councillor Hodgett and Bourne, so they're noted. Declarations of interest we've received none. There's none from the floor. No. Okay. Noted. Urgent business from agreed by the Chair. There is none. Questions from the public and councillors. We'll move on to that. We have received 10 questions from councillors, 17 questions from the public. There is no councillors here to ask supplementary questions, so there's no members of the public either, so we'll move straight on. Statements and petitions from the public. We have no members of the public here to give statements, so we'll move on from that. Minutes from the previous meeting is the 10th of July. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Paul May, Councillor Rigby second. I shall sign. Oh, wait a minute. All in favour, sorry. There we are. Yeah. Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. Okay. Consideration of single member items, there are none. Consideration of matters referred by policy development scrutiny bodies, there is none. I will ask the Cabinet to note recent single member decisions taken. We'll move on to the substantive bit. So, Baines Homes Programme, English Combe Lane Supported Housing Scheme. Councillor McCabe to move, please.
Thank you, Chair. The scheme before you isn't just a policy compliance scheme. It is an excellent, award-winning scheme that meets an unmet need in our community and will undoubtedly improve the lives of some of our most vulnerable residents. Because there is a big difference between a policy-compliant development and a carefully crafted development. And this is a case in point. The previously permissioned 37 home scheme just about scraped through the system, and despite all its shortcomings, it was deemed to be policy compliant. But there was no local support. And having to listen to the concerns of residents, Councillor Guy, as the leader, stepped in and said that we should be delivering something much less dense and far more sensitive to the site. This coincided with a pressing need for local supported housing for some of our most vulnerable residents, where currently we pay for expensive care packages outside of our area, far from family and far from home. So the newly consented scheme offers supported living for some 16 tenants. So how does it help us improve people's lives? The scheme has been designed with care professionals and experts. It allows us to meet the needs of our residents, maybe with autism or learning difficulties, in a quiet, low-stimulus environment. We can help them live as independently as possible, with services delivered on site. We can also help young people moving on from children's services into adulthood. So when this site is up and running, it really will improve lives. Additionally, this site is ecologically sensitive, and although the Tootle Flushes do not meet the national requirements for protection, local residents strongly express their desire for the natural environment to be protected and managed. So we have designed the scheme to treat its ecological value as an asset. In fact, we achieve a 20% diversity net gain, double our own policy requirement, and we achieve this on site. Our efforts have been recognised nationally. We were shortlisted in the Design in Mental Health Awards. We won a National Planning Award, and just last week we received a National Housing Design Award. This is a nationally excellent scheme. But we wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for the intervention of the local community. I know there will still be those who object to any development, but to those who said, if you insist on developing this field, then you must do better. You were heard. We listened. We went back to the drawing board. And we are now looking to deliver a scheme that is demonstrably better. We have those national awards because of you and because we listened. This is one of the most consulted upon schemes we have going at the moment, but I know that local residents and the ward councillors will want to continue to be involved as the scheme is built out, and I will work to ensure that happens. Colleagues, you're being asked to approve implementation of this award-winning scheme and to delegate authority to the relevant director to receive the Homes England grant. So I'd like to finish by thanking Homes England for their support, thanking officers for all their hard work getting us to this point, and to local residents for ensuring that we did better. I move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cade. Councillor May.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to second this proposal. This scheme will provide 16 units of specialist housing at English Combe Lane. The scheme gained planning permission in 2024, and tonight's decision rightly provides authority to proceed and budget approval. In progressing the scheme, we will provide supported living accommodation for adults with complex needs and help close the gap in the local market. There is not enough of this type of accommodation available. It's a priority of our Liberal Democrat administration to increase local provision of such facilities, including directly by the council. Although Councillor Bourne is the Cabinet Member for Adult Services, she's not able to attend this evening. I'm particularly interested because, of course, young people with complex needs grow up to be adults with complex needs. I've seen how supported housing can be so beneficial for young people, providing enormous help for children with special education needs and disabilities. The specialist housing will help residents live as independently as possible in their own homes, but with social care and support they need provided on site. The accessible accommodation and peaceful, low-stimulus environment will be tailored to the residents' needs. This complexity of design will support people with different disabilities and, above all, will support people to stay in the local area, close to their families, whereas they previously might have been in expensive placements away from the local area. I'm aware that this site has been contentious with residents in the area for a long time, and I'm pleased that the Liberal Democrat Council has responded to their concerns in this sensitive way, whilst providing a valuable opportunity for vulnerable adults in our community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor May. It's been moved and seconded. I'll move on to the debate. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to put on record my support for the scheme. Building this kind of provision in our area helps reduce financial pressure on adult services by reducing our reliance on more expensive out-of-area placements. This is one of the major pressures on our budget. It's also better for those vulnerable people with complex needs, whom we have both a statutory and moral duty to support. It's a development which is sensitive to the environmental needs of the site, and as the paper points out, the site is already designated for housing in the current local plan, so it's not like there is going to be no development. So this development is good financially, good for the vulnerable people it will help support, and the best option available environmentally, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome the evolution of this housing scheme for this site, which has been transformed from what was previously put forward. Councillor Jess David, along with Cabinet Leads, have worked really hard to engage with residents and bring forward what I think is an inspirational scheme. The Cabinet and Officer team have listened carefully to the concerns about the original scheme of 37 units and in the change of direction into a smaller supported housing scheme of 16 units. This is a nice scheme integrated into the community, making it easy for people to access the local amenities and shops. The much improved scheme is helping us to deliver a key political priority, caring for residents and protecting our most vulnerable. Now, clearly, many of the neighbouring residents in Kingsway and my ward in Odddown and also in Moorlands, the development remains a sensitive issue. There will be a certain amount of disruption during the construction phase. However, when the units are operating, the goal is to create a peaceful living environment for residents with a high needs to be able to live as independently as possible. This will be transformational for those residents. As we develop the scheme, it is important that the Council continues to communicate well with the residents, listen to their concerns, and I would ask the Cabinet Leads and officers to continue to focus on mitigation of traffic noise and protection of the ecology as a key part of moving forward with the scheme. So I support this much improved scheme. We need to continue to engage well with residents to deliver what should be an amazing scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Before we move on to the debate, I think it's important to note that politicians and officers and the community working together, sometimes there are few and far between moments where you can actually say in your life when you're in politics and as an officer, you've achieved something exceptionally good for some of the most vulnerable in our society. And this is one of those schemes where everybody from the community, everybody that's been involved, through to the officers and yourselves that are making this decision now, you will be making a decision that will be transformational for some of the most vulnerable people in our society. And that's a genuine, caring council that listens. So well done. We'll move to the votes. It's electronic. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Well done, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to item 13. It's the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone Local Development Order. Councillor Roper to move, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a bit of technical amendment paper here, but I just wanted to remind everybody of the work that we are doing as an authority, not just in Bath, but in North East Bath and North East Somerset, and highlight the work that our regeneration team is doing, working with Keynsham Town Council, with Midsummer Norton Town Council, where we're trying to encourage investment and regeneration in communities that have really taken quite a hit. And the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone is one of these examples where we are doing something that's extremely difficult and challenging, and we are working with the combined authority to deliver something that hasn't been delivered in that community for a generation, which is a new employment site to create what we hope to be in excess of 1,000 jobs. And the market's failed to deliver this in the best part of 15, 20 years, and we're attempting to do that, and it is very difficult. And I think officers should be commended for the work that they're doing in trying to regenerate these communities. This technical change is to spot the difference. If you look at the papers, what we're looking at here is a roundabout that has a slightly oval centre, which is being changed to a round centre, and we're talking about a footpath that is going to be 3 metres wide, or 3.5 metres wide instead of 2 metres wide. Should point out, of course, that we are upgrading the road network to cope for the developments that take place, and we're also putting in safe active travel spaces as part of that. Cabinet needs to approve the local development order amendments. This phase is being delivered by this LDO, this local development order. So at the moment, the way the LDO is drafted, that any proposed changes that need planning permission under the Council's constitution, only the Cabinet has the authority to approve amendments to the LDO. And I think this is the second technical amendment I brought to Cabinet. However, what this paper also does is it amends the LDO so that there's a new delegation of authority, and this means that the future minor amendments such as this one can be approved by the Director of Capital and Housing Delivery rather than requiring Cabinet approval. And this delegation was not included in the original LDO paper, so this corrects that. And in addition, we're proposing a revision to Condition 12 of the LDO, which will enable the local planning authority to approve future amendments to the highway design. And this flexibility is intended to accommodate changes that may arise during the development of the technical design, because as we're getting down into the real detail, we're having to make some changes. So there we are, a wider footpath and a different shape roundabout, but also further delegation power, so we don't have to take up your time with this sort of thing again. So I'm happy to move recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 in the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Councillor Warren?
Yes, I'm just happy to second the recommendations. It seems to me this is a really important project, providing local jobs and providing for improved sustainable transport options for the local community. Very important. Happy to second it.
Okay, debate. We'll move to the vote. All in favour? Electronic vote? Yep. Treasury Management Monitoring Report, please. 30th of June. Councillor Elliott to move, please.
Thank you. So this is the quarterly Treasury Management Report prepared in line with the SIPFA Treasury Code of Practice and the Treasury Management indicators for the first quarter of the financial year. This is, once again, a reassuringly unexciting report. Our return on operational investments is just over the benchmark rate, and we're predicting that our interest in capital financing requirement will be £175,000 under budget by the end of the year. In other words, our borrowing is coming in at slightly lower rates than predicted in the budget, giving a small amount of relief on the revenue budget. Given the fact that the Central Government's Fair Funding Review coming this autumn is likely to be pretty negative for Bath and North East Somerset Council, the revenue budget is going to need all the help it can get, so this is welcome. Our borrowing increased during the period by just over £3.5 million to just under £280 million. Given there was a public question about borrowing in the papers earlier, I want to emphasise that this is normal activity to fund capital projects. It's borrowing to buy, build or restore assets. It's not in any way unusual or exceptional. Our capital financing requirement is forecast to be £441.8 million by the end of the financial year. That's the amount we would need to borrow if we took out all the borrowing for all the capital schemes we have planned. But our actual borrowing will be way below that. That's the job that Treasury Management do, that our officers undertake so well, to make sure that we manage our cash and investments efficiently and we fund our capital projects from our own reserves rather than borrowing where we can, only taking out more lending where it's necessary and prudent to do so. I commend to you Appendix 1, which sets out the Council's performance against the 7 key Treasury Management indicators, and you'll be able to see in that appendix that we're well within limits on all 7 of them. So I'd like to thank the officers for the quiet, solid, unsung work they do in the finance team in keeping the Council's underlying financial position sound. I plan for these Treasury Management updates to remain unexciting for as long as I'm in this role, and I move the recommendations set out in sections 2.1 and 2.2 of the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for keeping them unexciting. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to second the recommendations in 2.1 and 2.2 of the report. As always, Councillor Elliott and the very able officer team showcased extremely well one of the key political priorities of the Council to deliver sound financial management. The Lib Dem Council continues, as with many local authorities, to suffer from the winds of austerity that are blowing from currently the Labour government, and let's be honest, Labour are not investing in local government. The paper presented shows a good grip on borrowing and an impressive approach to investments. The council, Lib Dem Council, should be has been very consistent at balancing the budget and managing the finances well, which then means we're better able to deliver for our residents. So happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor. I will refer you to my opening comment about no political comments being made because we're in Purda. So consider yourself officially told off. I'll move to the debate. Councillor May.
Chair, I just want to say that we're responsible for public finance, and under those circumstances, seeing an AA+ credit rating for this council is enormous importance, because there is always a risk that you cross that line and then you put public finances at risk. And I think this is great credit to the officers of this council and the cabinet member for making sure we're actually keeping this really, really safe for the public.
Thank you, Councillor. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, excellent work. Well done, everybody. The fact that it is boring, it underlines the immense amount of work that goes into ensuring that we are financially secure, while a lot of authorities are not. So very well done. We'll move to the electronic vote now.
Unexciting, not boring, I think.
Okay, that is unanimous. That concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you everyone for attending and watching. Thank you very much.